Anyway, so I love that. But I do love the Oak Ridge area, and I love living in the whole Greensboro. I've lived in several places. But I grew up in a town, smaller than Greensboro, bigger than Oak Ridge, but kind of a small town. I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania. And if you don't know Erie's often referred to as the Mistake on the Lake, which is the kind of banner you want from your hometown. Where are you from? Mistake on the Lake? But Erie's known for a lot of things. In fact, I can remember one time I was at a friend of mine's house, and his grandfather was there, and he's kind of a crotchety guy. He's like, "Hey, Roberts, where are you from?" I'm like, "Erie, Pennsylvania." That's something to be proud of. I wasn't waving the Erie Pride banner. I was just answering your question. That's where I'm from. But Erie's known for a lot of things. It's known for being very cold and getting lots of snow. They constantly break snow records. Every year you're going to hear about Erie. I think this year was 129 inches of snow in December. They were also known for the lake being very polluted. You may recall that was the only Great Lake that caught fire. Yeah, that lake caught fire and burned. And I grew up swimming in that lake, and I think I'm okay. Melissa seems to think it explains a few things, but I mean, it may be why I'm growing this little third ear right behind my ear. I'm getting this third ear. No, that's not true. It's a nipple. I got a third nipple. No, that's not true either. But I say, as much as I pick on Erie, it is beautiful there in the summer. July 14th through the 19th. If you're ever there, that time of year, beautiful, beautiful place to be. So, but I also, growing up in Erie, I had some small town experiences that you might not get in the big city. And one of those experiences, I was a paper boy. You guys remember paper boys and paper girls? Yeah, I don't know if they still exist today or they had them in the big city, but I was definitely a paper boy. And that's a real character building experience for a child. And I'll share with you why that is. For starters, when you're a kid and you have a dirt bike, right? You ride your dirt bike, you want the pear seat. You don't want the banana seat. The banana seats are typically for girls' bikes. You might as well just put a basket and a bell on your bike if you got the banana seat. But I had to have a banana seat for the stupid saddle that the newspapers went in. They would go on those saddles. Your bike would never stay up. It's always hitting the tire. It's ridiculous. But anyway, the one thing you don't want to happen when you're a paper boy is to have an extra paper at the end of your route, especially in the winter and especially on Sunday. Sundays are the worst day for paper boys. And you remember why that is? Because the Sunday paper is the thickest paper. There are people who only buy the Sunday paper. That's the parade section. That's all the inserts. And yeah, you don't want to have an extra paper, because if you have an extra paper, let me tell you, they didn't print extra papers. If you had 32 houses on your route, you got 32 papers. And if there was a paper in your bag, either you messed up or they did. And again, you don't want that to happen. You don't want it to happen in winter. And by the way, speaking of the Sunday paper, all those inserts. So apparently in the late 70s, they had the technology to print newspapers. They did not have the technology to insert inserts into the paper. So we would go to this big metal box, and we would take our bale of papers out, and then there'd be 8 other bales of inserts, and we'd have to stand out there in the freezing cold and insert all the inserts. Did I mention it was a character building experience being a paper boy? Yeah. But sure enough, one day I come home, middle of winter, freezing cold. I come home, there's an extra paper in my bag. I'm like, I sure hope they printed an extra one. And I take the 9 layers of clothes off that I needed to essentially survive in the middle of winter there. And I sit down to a nice warm breakfast, and the phone rings. And it's Mrs. Johnson. And she didn't get her paper. I'm like, son of a... So I got to put all my clothes on, which are wet now, by the way. And I got to go back out in the freezing cold and walk all the way to her house, which I do. And by the way, her name's not Miss Johnson. I'm protecting her identity and potentially getting sued. I really want to say it, but I'm not. But anyway, so I get all the way to Miss Johnson's house, and she had me put the newspaper in this little bin that was just to the right of her door. And there was a paper in there. I'm like, that's odd. And then I look, it was that day's paper. So I ring the bell. I'm like, hi, Miss Johnson. You mentioned that you didn't get your newspaper, but I couldn't help but notice it's in the bin. And she's like, oh, it was so cold, I must not have seen it. Thanks. Grabs the paper, shuts the door in my face. Yeah. So I peed in her yard every day the rest of my childhood. Yeah. And I'd like to think I did some harm. I'd like to think I killed some plants or some grass, but at the very least, I felt a lot better. Yeah. But the other experience we had growing up in a small town was playing down at the railroad tracks. Yeah. Because why wouldn't you want your young child miles away from you playing in front of a speeding locomotive that essentially can't stop? But that's where we spent our days, down at the railroad track. So one day, we stumbled upon the kind of good fortune a young kid can't imagine. Apparently, a freight car that had boxes of Tussie cream deodorant on it, a bunch of those boxes spilled off and it spilled all over the track. There's just Tussie cream deodorant everywhere. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tussie cream deodorant. Kind of is what it says. Cream deodorant, Tussie brand. Still exists today, by the way. But today it comes in plastic jars. but back then it came in glass jars. And we learned pretty quickly that if you take a glass jar of cream deodorant and you throw it up in the air and it hits a railroad track, it explodes awesomely. And hence began the Tussie Wars, where we would just throw deodorant at each other to be exploding. It's one of the better times I've ever had, frankly. You know, I look back on my life, it's like marriage, childbirth, Tussie Wars. I mean, it was in the top 5. Top 5 for sure. So funny enough, I come home one day, my brother and I, and my dad's like, why do you guys smell so good? I thought you were playing at the railroad track. And we told him, we're like, well, there's this Tussie cream deodorant. My dad's like, that's good deodorant. You should bring some home. And I'm thinking, really? You didn't want to just go to the store and buy deodorant for $3? You want us to dig it out of the dirt? It's not like it's in sealed boxes, but he wanted it, so we brought it home. So sure enough, we bring home a couple dirty jars of Tussie cream deodorant, and he unlids it and spoons it into a nice clean jar, throws the dirty jar out, leaves this other jar on the table with a spoon in it, and then goes and does something else. And my mom, who was a nurse at the time, working odd shifts, wakes up from a nap and sees a jar on the counter with a spoon in it. You can see where this is going. It goes where you think it's going. Yeah, she ate a big spoonful of Tussie cream deodorant. It did not go over well. You know, she's like, really, Jack? You didn't want to just go to the store and buy deodorant for $3? She's like, who just randomly eats things sitting on the counter? Do you think it was ricotta cheese or something?